West Tigers Faithful, episode 38, The Pit of Despair, the Squeakquel. Today we'll be asking questions such as, what is the meaning of life, particularly after juniors that you follow for many, many years leave without explanation and for nothing in return. Joe McCord, I thank you for your part in playing your part in the funeral service. I didn't actually ask you how you are. How are you?
Well, I have, been pretty good because I have kind of, how do I say this? I think being a West Tigers fan has helped me understand the true nature of suffering. And because I have, you know, reached this point in life where I do understand the true nature of suffering, I'm really quite good at dealing with suffering. And not only am I good at dealing with suffering, I'm also really good at avoiding it and taking situations that would ordinarily cause suffering and not allowing them to cause me suffering. And so, because of that, I'm doing just fine. Honestly, I'm totally fine. Um, I've got my new Redcliffe Dolphins membership card in the mail. Uh, and I've got my Hamaso Tabuai Fido poster up on the wall at home, on the inside of my toilet door. I've got a rugby league week cutout of Herbie Farnworth, and I've already put my same game multi on for the upcoming fixture for the Dolphins. So I was going to have a conversation with you before we went to air about this, actually, because it's probably a lot to dump on you live on the telecast here. But unfortunately, I had a really busy day, so I didn't get a chance to do so. I was thinking about potentially whether we could co-brand this podcast West Tigers and Redcliffe Dolphins Faithful moving forward.
Might think that way if things continue the way that they continue. Unfortunately, I have been struck with the West Tigers branding iron. But can you please humour me and our listeners as to why, as to what the meaning or the cause of all suffering is?
Attachment.
Expand.
Attachment is the root cause of all suffering. This is actually not, revolutionary, pioneering information either. This is actually one of the core philosophies in Buddhism and Taoism. Attachment being the cause of all suffering, because when you don't have attachment to things, whether that's another person, whether that's a material possession, or in our case, a lunatic fascination with a brand that represents a RSL club of degenerate boomers, with only an attachment being that they represent a certain geographical location that you may or may not, even in my case, have any kind of connection to. Attachment. Without it, no suffering. Attachment to your past, attachment to your future, attachment to your family, attachment to your phone, attachment to the idea of what you want to be, attachment to this future that may not ever come, where Benji Marshall coaches the West Tigers to the finals. Take away the attachment and you take away the suffering. And the question you must ask yourself is, how do you take away the attachment? Well, you chop it off. You just chop it off. You just go, what is it that I'm attached to that brings me suffering? And you just kill it. You just kill it.
Well, you don't necessarily have to chop it off either, Joe. You just have to turn it off after minute 55 when the opposition...
I don't think that works. You got to turn it off at minute 0, Jared. No, I'm kidding. Of course. Look, ultimately, let's be real for a second here. West Tigers, surely there are fans out there who, after having had 6 straight losses didn't really internalize any kind of negative emotions as a result of it, right? And I bet you bottom dollar that none of them are watching this right now, and probably very few of them are listening back to this podcast, are they? Because what makes us fans is the attachment, and the attachment causes the suffering, and the fans that are truly attached exhibit certain behaviors, such as listening to every piece of podcast media that the West Tigers fandom could possibly create. And what kind of over-attached fans would listen to two fuckwits like us yammer on about the West Tigers? Only the truly attached. So what I'm saying is, if you don't want to feel pain, stop listening to the West Tigers Faithful podcast, baby. Because the West Tigers Faithful podcast is all about delivering you suffering straight to your ears once a week on the subject of the West Tigers. Now, I'm gonna bet that most of the people listening here aren't going to be able to do that. They're just not going to be able to. They're just going to have to continue, because you know what? The worst part of this whole experience is the thing that contributes the most to suffering and the most to attachment is something that people are gaslit into thinking is actually a positive thing. You want to know what that is?
Loyalty.
Not quite, but that's a pretty good answer. The answer is hope. The answer is hope. Speaking of which, he's back, Tristan Hope, number 9. Tristan Hope's back this week. Good on him for getting selected, Tristan Hope. But we'll talk about that a little bit later in the show, I assume. Oh, maybe we won't. I don't know. 10 minutes into Friday, he immediately regretted going, oh, Blaine, you went? Blaine went to Brookvale, and it's...
Blaine is part of the lads, the Pie Hill boys, who are a fair few of them I know quite well. A bunch of absolute legends and a bunch of very, very loyal West Tigers followers. Unfortunately, since they started this little thing, I think their win rate while in attendance sits at about 17%. But that's pretty much the same with everybody else, realistically. All right.
Can I put something to you, Jared?
Hit me, Joe.
Bryce in the chat just said faithful. Too bloody faithful. That's the problem. Maybe what we need to do, maybe our calling, Jared, is to help our friends that like our podcast and like listening to us talk understand how to be interested in the West Tigers without letting it damage your soul, right? And maybe just maybe the first step that we can embark on that journey is a rebrand. Maybe Bryce has a point. Maybe we should rebrand our podcast to like the West Tigers Interested or the West Tigers Curious. What do you think?
Well, you sound...
WTC?
You seem team bi-curious with the way that you're carrying on about the Redcliffe Dolphins.
Yeah, I am bi-curious. I mean, let's be real. I am from Brisbane. The Redcliffe
I'm
Dolphins are my
bi-curious
local team.
time. I'm bi-curious every time I see Isaiah Katoa play. I mean,
he's
I feel
bloody good, isn't he, Katoa? They're a nice team to watch when they're on song, aren't they?
Something to think about.
And they've got, as somebody in Twitter pointed out, $4 cheaper per ticket is their members' pricing. So it's cheaper to be a Dolphins fan than it is to be a Tigers fan. Cheaper, more fun, maybe. Look, West Tigers, it's truly fascinating, isn't it? Like, we could probably dedicate an entire episode to really unpacking what it means to be a fan of a sports team. But I think what people forget is what the word fan is short for. Have you ever thought about it?
You and I have spoken about it. We've sort of riffed on it a little bit. To be a fan typically is to love unconditionally for the most part. To barrack and support, irrespective of how tough times are, to look beyond the faults of an administration or a team.
Yes, it is. But it doesn't need to be, does it? Right? Because a fan is a fanatic. And a fanatic, if I saw somebody in a social situation and I was like, mate, you're a fanatic, they're not gonna be like, thanks. Like I'm labeling you a lunatic, a goofball, but we've shortened the word as a way to soften the blow of being a fanatic in this specific context of being interested in whether it's a musician or a celebrity or a sports team. Why? And you know, there's a school of thought, and I've been thinking about this a lot lately, actually. And this is, you know, we're going to lose some listeners over this, I think. But I digress. Words, language, right? Society, and you know, the things that we believe and the actions that we make every day and the choices that we make and the things we dedicate ourselves to, the whole damn thing. So much of it is derivative of language, right? Without language, we wouldn't have so many constructs in society that turn into laws, turn into beliefs, turn into values, turn into things that we then make choices about, that we then use as justifications to you know, choose A versus B. And language, therefore, is actually at the heart. It underpins, like, words, language, actually precursors so much of reality. But yet we just so whimsically allow ourselves to accept being a fanatic. I say detach. You are not your failure. You are not your club's failure, West Tigers fans. You are not. Don't feel emotionally imbalanced by the fact that Alex Seafarth gets selected every week. It's not you that makes those choices. It's not even up to you to figure out how to solve the problem. Not your problem. It's not up to you to show up every week and support the club. If you want to do that, do it and then walk away. No attachment. Oh, I enjoyed the sausage roll. I enjoyed the skill on display from the other team. Look at that. What a try they scored just now. Ah, how amusing that Heath Mason dropped the ball. Ha! I could have predicted such things. Look at me. I'm so good at predicting things. I was able to predict that Heath Mason would drop the ball. Oh, go me. These are all coping mechanisms that you, my friends, can choose to initiate. Try it. You might find that it makes the experience of being a West Tigers fan all the more enjoyable.
Now, obviously, you are trying to get fans to detach, but and you said something about trying not to solve the club's problems. But do you want to try and solve a few of the club's problems?
I mean, I'm going to be really honest. And you know, when I exhibit this particular personality trait, I always think to myself, "Damn, what a guy you are." That's what I think when I do this. But you know, I've noticed about Benji Marshall that some of the things that I say on the show or in conversations with you or whoever else, it's like instantly Benji Marshall tries them out, right? And then they fail. And then I go, Benji, what'd you do that for? But I recognize it. So much so, and I'll give you a really good example. When we were in the pit of despair, when we were trying to find a new coach, I came up with a harebrained idea, and I think you'll find receipts for this in the Discord. I said, You know what the Tigers really need? The Tigers need to just somehow channel the spirit of 2005. What we probably need to do is we probably need to just make Benji Marshall the head coach and probably surround himself with the likes of Heinington and Hodgson. That'll change everything because it'll change the DNA of the club. It'll change everything. I think you'll find that in the Discord server that I said this. And you know what? The club did it. And then it didn't work. It just didn't work. And we've made suggestions like, you know what we truly need? We need to fix. No, I'll talk about something much more specific. Like last year, we were talking about how much of a problem it is that we couldn't get out of our own end. Like how much harder it must be to win football games when you're kicking from the 30 all the time. All right. And we remember that? We had that conversation.
Oh, yeah, we did.
And then what did the club do? They went out and signed Sunia Taruva and Jarrell Skelton, who, fixed that problem. And we're still here in the pit of fucking despair. So what does that tell you about my willingness to continue to solve the West Tigers fucking problems? I'm out of ideas. But you know what the truly ironic thing is? The truly ironic thing is that I have realized something. I have realized that the less that you try to change things and impact things, and the more that you just live in the now and let things unfold, the happier that you are. So to that I say, West Tigers, be Tigers.
With that in mind, I have a question for everybody listening live. I want to know which West Tigers player each of you think would have the worst breath and why. Please give me a good descriptive version, and we'll put the comments up on the screen and we'll read them out for all the listeners.
That's a fucking good question, Jared. I can't wait to have that conversation with you.
Yeah, I think it's worth having a conversation. There's been some chats about it in other social circles, but again, which West Tigers player do you believe would have the worst breath? Morning, night, whenever, before meals, when fasting for Lent, just let me know. Nonetheless, I am going to surmise this game as quickly as possible. The game against Manly, we went down 28-10. We had plenty of ball in the first half to ensure that we did not go down behind at the break. 319/20-year-olds in the spine meant that we did not execute. Manly scored their mandatory try just on half time, as per most West Tigers storylines. That was it. And as I mentioned, I turned it off in the 46th minute. Look, I don't want to go through another coaching change. I don't want to deal with all the turbulence. And ultimately, we're always on a hiding to nothing with, a lot of key players out. But nonetheless, Benji Marshall, if you are going to continue to pick young players in your spine, you will lose your job.
Yes, well, unlike you, I watched the game from start to finish. And I'm not saying that as an insult. I actually applaud you. Incredible prioritization, Jared. You chose your mental health over 36 minutes of pain, and you deserve accolades for showing that amount of self-control, honestly.
Thank you.
Kudos to you, sir. Now, I think at this point, I don't think Benji Marshall is ever going to get fired. Because at this point, firing him, it doesn't matter if it's this year, next year, or the year after. Firing him, it's demonstrably not the solution to the West Tigers' problems, is it? We've seen enough examples dating back now to the original Sheen's firing to know that firing the coach doesn't solve the problem. So why would they do it again? There's literally no justification for it. Like, they can't justify it. It's like, what are you going to do? Hire another coach to fire them in 2-3 years? Like, I don't think he's fireable. And I think that the sooner that the West Tigers fandom, and the sooner that the NRL media, and the sooner that the players that are at the club, and the sooner that the coaches that are potentially trying to, find an avenue through their agent having a media job, get through their heads that the West Tigers aren't really in the business now of firing coaches. They're in the business of figuring out why the fuck the West Tigers can't win games. Like, and it's not the coach. It's not the coach. It's not the players. It's not, is it? Because it doesn't matter who the fuck we sign. It doesn't matter what rookies we bring through. It doesn't matter who we sign. It doesn't matter who the coach is. This club cannot perform. It cannot. I think we all know what the true solution is. I think, after that little mini rant that I just went on, I think everybody is arriving at the exact same conclusions. Well, one of two conclusions. Sell the club or fold the club. That's it. Because the Holman Barnes Group cannot fucking put a competitive team on the field. You were in the Discord last night when I went through the Holman Barnes annual report, right? Did you see the screenshots that I put up there?
Oh, yes, the financials, yes.
The Holman Barnes Group, who are the sole owner of the West Tigers, also own multiple, clubs. They own the West Asheville Club. They own, you know better than me the other names of the clubs they own. They own a few small ones, a few good-sized ones, and they own the West Tigers. They also own the West Tigers Magpies Junior Club, and they own the West Tigers NRLW Club. They own football clubs, football teams, football brands, and some real estate. When you read their annual report, Simon Cook, nice guy, met him. He wouldn't remember me, but I've met him. Nice guy. He leads with, it's been a great year at the Holman Barnes Group. The feedback that we've had about our new bistro at the West Asheville, astonishing. Our Mediterranean menu, to die for. That's the CEO of the Holman Barnes Group.
Yeah,
he's reporting to the stakeholders of the club, who in the case of the Holman Barnes Group are shareholders, and only a limited number of them, I believe. I'm not sure how much of a percentage the members of the West's Leagues Club hold in the actual Holman Barnes Group. But anyway, I digress. Even if it is the members of the West Leagues Club, it doesn't matter. The point is, you don't find anything about the West Tigers in that fucking AGM, dude. No, you don't. It's not even like they don't care. What they care about are their clubs. They care about their clubs. They talked about their revenue. They made as a whole business, they made about $30 million or something like that, of which they made $9 million in profit, right? Which is pretty bang on for what you would want. So as a business, they're actually successful. Holman Barnes Group, which is ironic because it's come out in the media this week or last week or whatever that the West Tigers are the least financial club in the NRL in terms of revenue and what have you. But the Holman Barnes Group are fine, doing just fine, making 30% profit like they should be, and $30 million in revenue, which is too low for an organisation that owns one of the biggest media brands in the country. But I digress. That kind of, to me, puts it into perspective because they don't care about the club. They don't view the club as an asset. They make money from their actual physical locations. That's what they view as an asset. We made $9 million that allowed us to invest in upgrading facilities at the club. We invested in a new outdoor area and put in some new plastic chairs. They're not interested in running the fucking Tigers, man. They so much so that they literally hired a dedicated board, and they've admitted tacitly that they don't give a shit about the West Tigers because it's their problem now, and they've separated operations as much as possible. This club will never be successful. You can't compete with teams that are owned by people who give nothing but a fuck about the running of the club. right? There's teams out there whose owners, they're all rich. Nick Politis is a wealthy man, but I reckon Nick Politis spends about 90% of his life running the Sydney Roosters, and he has other people running the rest, right? All of his business interests are just funding him now to run the Roosters because that's his passion in life. The Holman Barnes Group have no passion for running an NRL franchise, no skill when it comes to running an NRL franchise, demonstrably so now, dating back 25 years. Sell the club or hand the license back to the NRL. I'm sick of it. Now I'm angry. Thanks.
I'm not even going to bother continuing with the line of questioning because, obviously, as you said, rant over, mic dropped. I guess we can talk about, another of the Tigerisms. Up his eyes rolling into the back of his head, Category 1 concussion. De Silva still released off the back of it. Richardson going into PR mode, trying to fix it. Jaden Sullivan breaking his leg. Whether or not he comes home for that reason, not too sure. I guess, look, you could look really glass half full. And for the record, I'm not looking glass half full at the moment. I just can't do it. And you say, well, we were against Penrith and Canberra. Both were top 4 teams when you look at power rankings in terms of where they actually, how good they're actually playing. We're in those games up to our eyeballs. We put the Galvin saga behind us and we were so close yet so far. And this was just an off night with 3/4 of our spine missing. But fuck, what did we sit here and say at the beginning of the week last week? It has to be one through the middle. They had Matt Lodge and Torquiaho. Both of them were both assisted from the field with carers, with walkers. They are that fucking old. Seriously, Ben Trebojevic is not a footballer's bumhole. He's a nepo baby, and yet he crosses the stripe against us. Jazz Tavanga at 9. Need I say more? Corey Waddell is not a first grader. Ask any Manly fan you know. And we run this middle triumvirate of May, Bolle, and Twal. The only one that was worth feeding was the latter. He's been named captain this week.
He's been named captain. He had one good game, and he's the captain now. I'm the captain now. Fucking kid.
It's just so disappointing. Now, look, we fired off about referees and stuff. We have, but I watched the match on the weekend for the first 45 minutes, mind you, and it did not Manly's line speed was like Penrith 2021. It's like what the Dogs are known for. It didn't make sense. It felt like they had to be offside. But even then, just the lack of footballing IQ in this team, just to not do something with it. Beta player, block shapes off the hooker,
throw the football at the ref's head and get sin binned. Whatever, right?
Oh, well, Heath Mason, basically did the equivalent of that. It's really, the mind boggles. And, ultimately, that's going to happen when you've got Latu, who is basically learning to become a halfback on the run, and he was without his partner in crime. But it's
his
just
connection's a little dodgy.
It's tough going out there right now. And sorry, how is it now? Any better?
Bad. Nah.
Okay,
but you know what? While you play around with it, I will say, you go, all your points are valid. Tactical observations, they're what I would call symptoms, right? And everything is a symptom. If I was in charge of auditing the West Tigers, and we did this audit, and they did nothing. They changed nothing. They pretended they changed things. Remember we did this? Remember? Do you remember when they did the independent review and the episode when we looked at it in hindsight? I was like, they actually haven't done anything. Did we realize that they've done nothing? They literally did nothing. Anyway, if you have a continual issue with the refs, right? like, which we do, and they're independent. They're independent's wrong. There are fans of other clubs who are at this point now going, it's madness, right? It's madness, like how the Tigers constantly cop these weird calls. There was one in that game, wasn't there? There was a very strange penalty that was awarded against us early in the game. A very strange one. I can't remember what it was, but there was one of those sort of West Tigers-isms that happened. Do you remember what I'm talking about?
No, I scrubbed it from my memory.
Okay, I digress. If Nick Politis had the feeling that his club was getting the wrong end of the stick from the referees and it was causing problems, right? And like he's, being a successful businessman, he's probably going to not have that thought internalized until it's to the point where he's ruled out a lot of other things, right? Because that's how growth mindset people think. What do you think he does? What do you think the actions of a person who considers themselves to be the master of their reality, full agency over their reality, what decision does he make when he gets to that? He gets to that point.
He calls Peter V'landys.
He calls Peter V'landys, right? And what does he do?
He issues a please explain.
Does he?
What do you think he does?
I think he probably has lunch with Peter V'landys and then probably goes and has lunch with Graham Annesley and then probably goes and has lunch with some refs, and that's probably all he does. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I do.
I'm saying that people like that, they don't go through the front door. They don't like line up a problem and go, Peter, what's going on here? You're not treating us fairly. Because he realizes that's not how you get shit done. You don't change people's behavior by confronting them with the behavior. That's not how you actually change somebody's, not adults' behavior anyway. You can do that with kids if you've got well-behaved kids.
You sneak around.
And that's not how, that's right. You get in the back of their head, right? And you also have to influence the people who influence the people who influence the people. It's a big game. But that is the game of success. Mastery of reality, the game of success is about influencing people in ways that they don't even know that they're being influenced to create the outcomes that you want. That's how you win. Somebody like Nick Politis knows how to do that. Do you think that the Holman Barnes group are playing the game that way? No. Fuck no. Is Shane Richardson playing the game that way? No. Yes. Yes, but he doesn't own the club, right? So Shane Richardson and Nick Politis have different amounts of energy that they give to the situation. They have different amounts of tolerance. They have different amounts of to a certain point, Shane Richardson's going to be like, I'm just the fucking CEO, right? Benji Marshall's going to be like, I'm just the head coach, right? Nick Politis is who the buck stops with. So he doesn't play that card, right? See the difference? That right there is the difference, right? Every other club has somebody in charge of them that is a little bit more bought in to the success of the club, or in some cases, way more bought in to the success of the club. The West Tigers ownership group would have the least amount of buy-in to the outcomes of the club of any ownership group in the NRL. I guarantee it. I guarantee it. It's evident. That is the most logical way I can explain why we fail constantly.
We need a godfather.
They need to sell the club or hand it back, because they're at this point in time, they are doing a disservice to a community. They're doing a huge disservice to the legacies of two clubs that had decent legacies. Balmain having a fantastic legacy. No offense.
That's okay.
But at this point in time, they have demonstrably proven that they have no capacity to actually drive the standards necessary to hold even quality staff accountable, much less not quality staff accountable. I think Shane Richardson hit the ground running, went ape shit, great. He was on fire. He came into the club and he observed the club's state being what it shouldn't have been, right? Like he's looking at us like, this isn't how a good NRL club looks. So he like went about changing it contextually into what it should look like. But here's an elderly man, much like Tim Sheens was, who's come back, who, you know, at what level can you expect to extract from him the true willingness that maybe once existed, right? People get over it. Benji Marshall is an inexperienced head coach. I think he's doing the best he can. I absolutely think he's probably pushing himself harder than anyone else possibly would be in his situation because of who he is as a person and because of who he is as to the West Tigers, right? But he is what he is. He's an inexperienced head coach. But it wouldn't matter who you put in there. It wouldn't matter who you put in there because ultimately there's not a spectre sitting on top that is holding themselves accountable to the downstream success that everybody else needs to be held accountable to. The impact, the subtle impact of all of that is so profound that it's impossible to measure. That's the problem, right? You can't measure that shit. You can't measure how many people who are involved with the West Tigers' success in different specific roles are actually conscious of the fact that the Holman Barnes group are stupid. You know what I mean? Like, how many of those people are just like, these owners are fucking idiots, right? Probably all of them. How do you stay motivated to deliver success for an organization whose owners you think are a bunch of chuckle fucks? It's not really possible, is it? Like, you do it for your own value, but guess what? You do it for your value just long enough to do what? Fuck off. And we see it time and time again.
And it's continuing, and it will continue unless something changes again.
I know it's a fucking broken record, isn't it? Like, it's the same thing last year when we got to the bottom of the pit of despair. But that's just because it's the truth. And there's no sugarcoating the truth. Especially, like, I'm actually gobsmacked that the media haven't actually, like, already turned around and fired a shot at the Homer Barnes group. Now they've got Benji in the crosshairs and shit. Like, we got to go back to that independent review and acknowledge that we were in the pit of despair and it caused fans to go and fucking leverage the club into doing an independent review, and they somehow managed to do the independent review and initiate essentially none of the recommendations. They walked them back. They started the process of initiating them, and then they essentially were like, the independent review found we didn't really have to do anything.
I mean, the independent board has been installed, but nonetheless, there are...
Remember the specifics, though. Who's on the independent board?
Baz.
We dove into this. No, we dove into this. I'm
looking at it.
Yeah, but we dove into it, and the one of the people who got installed as an independent director was a former the CEO of a company that is a former sponsor of the club, so clearly would have had allegiances to people at the club, or specifically at the Holman Barnes Group. Barry O'Farrell has been involved with the club and the Holman Barnes Group for like 8 years, not an independent person. Like, they created an independent board and then they put non-independent people on there. There was like the two. There was the ex-athlete, the Paralympian chick. She seemed independent, but we don't know, right? And then there was the dude, the like consultant guy, the accounting dude.
Viola.
So there was two of them that I couldn't draw like any kind of evidence to suggest that they weren't independent. Those were the two that were actually appointed to the independent board by the third-party recruitment firm that they hired. The rest of them were appointed by the Holman Barnes Group. How many people are on the board? 5, right?
You mean the interim board?
The independent West Tigers board, it has 5, right? It's got Barry O'Farrell.
I think it's 7.
7. Well, point is, there's only 2 that I could even... There's 5 of the 7 are demonstrably not independent. They're demonstrably attached to the club prior to the establishment of that independent board. It is impossible for them to be independent. They would have friendships, they would have relationships, they would have financial relationships. They probably have business interests in common with people at the Holman Barnes Group. The Holman Barnes Group created that independent review and they didn't appoint an independent board. And I remember vividly that the recruitment firm got stopped. The recruitment firm only recruited 2 and then they got asked to stop. And I got to pull up short here because I might get myself in legal trouble if I'm not careful. It seems fairly likely to me. Obviously, I'm not suggesting that it's for certain, but it seems fairly likely to me that they literally recognized they were going to lose control of the West Tigers if they let that happen, and they stopped. That's what it looks like to me. Why? They can't run the club successfully. That was literally the recommendation of the audit. Who was it that did the audit? It was like the original person who did the actual audit of that recommended the appointment of the independent board.
Gary Barnier.
Yeah.
And Tony Crawford? Yeah.
They literally, if you think about what they must have thought of and all of the digging up clues and trying to get to the heart of it, doing fucking Power BI or whatever the hell they have to do. Ultimately, they went, the only way out for this club, while maintaining the ownership, is for you guys to establish a completely independent board because you can't run the thing. That's why else establish an independent board, right? So that dude literally, or those dudes literally went, you can't run a club. That's their finding. That was their finding. The problem is you can't run a club. And then they stopped the recruitment firm from appointing independent advisors, put an ex-chair on the board, the CEO of a bloody club, of a sponsor. No. You know what I mean? They didn't actually do the thing. So where's the media? Do your jobs. Stop pointing the finger of blame at the soldiers, man. And fans need to be smarter about this too, because ultimately, as I've said to you multiple times over the last week, what do we support? Are we supporting some fucking half competent business owners that are specialists at running bistros out of fucking leagues clubs in Western Sydney? No. We're supporting a football team, right? We're supporting a football team. We're supporting a football team that is a brand. It is colours, it is a logo, and it is the memories of players that we used to like. And it is also the promise of some players who are there right now or coming that we like. That's all we care about as fans. We don't give a flying fuck about the rest of it. We don't care about those people who own the club. I have no allegiance to them. I have no allegiance to anything except the imprint of what the West Tigers could possibly be, once was back in 2005. They need to that's not enough, is it, Jared? When you really break it down like that, it leaves no justification for continuing to care. So ultimately, at the end of the day, people are going to start recognizing this, and they're going to stop supporting the club. They're going to stop showing up to games. They're going to eventually, surely, especially considering all of the crap that's happening around the world now. People fucking don't have the time for this shit. People are disconnecting en masse from things that are overwhelming to them. People are just coming to God. They're just going, oh man, life's too short. Got fucking nuclear threats and shit going around. How the hell can I justify a sports brand giving me stress? At least that's where I'm at.
Cue the mass exodus. Well, it'd be really funny if after all this chat and whatnot, we actually end up with a win next week. Not that I'm sort of predicting it, but that would be a very, very West Tigers thing to do. Anything else to talk about the Manly game before I'm going to call it a preview, but it probably won't be. Talk about the Roosters game.
Manly game. I think that we can't win games without Jerome Luai in the team. I think everybody pointed at Jerome Luai not being in the team. I think Jerome Bull is I don't see where points come from without him.
It's looking that way. Well, I mean, Jerome as well, was an impact, but losing them both made it even worse.
Yeah, and I guess like beyond that, it wasn't easy to kind of score points behind that pack either, though, right? So I don't know what the hell they were doing. Like I don't know why they all decided to just not show up. So they picked a hell of a week to not show up, as you pointed out. Like that was literally the one game we probably needed to try to win 12-10.
Yeah, that's the
Um,
game you circle. A lot of last try tackles, which hurt too. A lot of tries off kicks. A lot of overlaps that shouldn't have been overlaps. Seems as if we forgot to play. But as they say, there's always next week, and as a West Tigers fan, there's in that instance there's another week to endure. Sunday,
you
two
know what?
o'clock, Allianz Stadium. We play the Chooks. Team changes are as follows: Sania Taruva's moved from right wing to fullback. Charlie Staines comes onto the right wing. As everybody knows, Heath Mason pushed the referee in the back, so he's been suspended. Luke Lauliti will play his first ever game of senior football in the centres against the Roosters, marking up against one Mark Nawonganitawaze. You only need to hear the tone of my voice to understand my thoughts on that. Adam Dewey moves to 5'8". As you mentioned, Hope is back, or is it truly? At least Tristan is. He's starting at 9. Alex Twa will captain the side. And Charlie Murray will be the 14, who I believe has done a little bit of time at 9 through his junior career. The outs for the Roosters: Crichton, Watson, Collins, Toya, Siwa Wong, and Spencer Lenu. Sam Walker is not back this week. We are extremely lucky. And as the great Tiger Cast pointed out, congratulations to Max McCarthy and Tom Rodwell for the Sydney Roosters. Both of those boys are on debut, and both of them will score tries because it is the West Tigers way. Ultimately, this game, we always talk about these archetypal Roosters forwards, these big, hungry, young fellas. Guys like Nalfahu White, Benyaya Yoelu, who plays he moonlights as a 9. He's starting there this week. He's mainly a 13. Celesi Foketi, who I am a big fan of. Blake Steep starts this week. Taylor Lazalu, who looks like a concreter from Aids, he's playing. And De La Selva, who is a very, very good young forward. I have no faith in our forward pack after last week. They played a team of geriatrics. This week they play a team of babies. I am hoping they stand up, but realistically, I don't know if they do. You throw in the brilliance of James Tedesco, the kicking game of Hugo Savala, the ingenuity and X factor of a guy like Nawonganitawaze, and average players such as Egan Butcher and Makahisi Makatoa, who are probably due a good performance to play themselves into form. And you can tell where I'm going with this.
I think that it's probably healthier to just think about the now and stop trying to predict. I actually was going to ask, can you not ask me for a match prediction? Because I feel like the hope that projects into the universe actually causes pain. It causes me pain, and it causes people pain. And also reflecting on the past is also causing pain. What I will say about the now is when I looked at the team list, 1 to 17, I was actually kind of surprised by how decent it is. Like, I mean, I thought with the amount of outs that we would have that it was going to be like real panic stations. But they've got a decent fullback. Taruva's played fullback. He's a good player. Dewey as a 6 option, he hasn't been good when we've put him in the halves. Earlier in the year, he wasn't good. But once upon a time, he was a first grade 6. And he looked okay there last week. He looked decent in the halves last week. And also by him stepping up, it made Latu Fainu better. And Tristan Hope is certainly not the worst third string 9 I've ever seen running around. He's been one of the better players in our New South Wales Cup side this season. So in terms of the 1, 6, 7, and 9, they've done considering how fucking decimated we are, they've done a good job. I personally think Taruva is going to do a better job at fullback than Mason would have.
Oh, without question, he will be wonderful under the high ball. I think that actually Sania is quite a good little eyes up ball player. I've seen glimpses of him in the past, and his ability to. He actually has a little bit of sleight of hand. He can double pump a little bit. Yeah, I agree with you there. I think the biggest problem, and look, I think we'll be fine from a yardage point of view with these boys.
Yeah.
Taruva, Skelly, Toa, all great yardage players. Luke is extremely underrated coming out of yardage, and Charlie Staines has had a really, really good year when
He's had a good year.
It's mainly just kicking game. Adam Dewey has some distance to his kicking at times. Other times he doesn't. Sometimes he puts up those wonderful bombs. Other times he doesn't. Latu, I saw a little bit that can be worked with, but again, we're playing Manly. You know, who's to say that his time is cut short and his kicking game worsens against the Chooks? I'm not sure.
Well, let me put it this way. So if I was Benji this week, I'm thinking in my head, if we win this game, it's like 18-16, 24-18. Like it's a 4 tries to 3 or 3 tries to 2 with a goal being the difference type game, right?
Yeah,
We're not gonna. So the priority 1 is keeping the Roosters under 3 tries. So who are we missing? We're missing Heath Mason, who can't tackle. We're missing Api Coruscant, who can't tackle. We're missing Jerome Luai, who's been one of our weak links in defence this season too. Defensively, we probably aren't actually a worse team this week than we have been the rest of the season, are we? Like, really, when you think about it, defensively, Taruva defensively at fullback and Buller defensively at fullback. Maybe Buller might be a better defensive fullback than Taruva, but I'm not sure. I can't say for certain. So... And then you point out the clear weakness being Luke Lololi'i in the centres, right? That's the clear weakness. But like Nwanga Nitawase is definitely like in the top 3 or 4 worst defensive centres in the game himself. So it's like it's a sort of a glass cannon battle between those two. Like Luke might give him a bath. It'll all depend on how much ball we give him and stuff like that. And as you point out, I actually think from a kicking game perspective, Luai's kicking game has not been good this season.
No, not at all.
Nor was Lachlan Galvin. So it's not like that. It's not like we're now suddenly going to have like a strength that no longer is there. Adam Dewey's got a better kicking game than Luai, in my opinion. He's got a better kicking game, a general kicking game, which is going to bode well for us in a defensive battle. So if our game plan here is simple, like it's just simple, like kick high, kick long, try to force errors. Adam Dewey could force errors with his kicking, right? When he gets hold of him, and you are right, like sometimes he misfires with the kicks, but I think Adam Dewey's probably going to make for a better general kicking option than anyone else that we've had in the halves this season so far. So from all of that to say, I'm not going to make any bold predictions, but I do think that the side, as named, should be able to actually compete better than people think it will. I can see a balance to it that gives me a sense that if they, I'll speak cryptically, if they do somehow manage to win, I am going to be like relatively unsurprised, not only because I can see the logical reasons for why they might be able to, but also because it's the Tigers and they just do weird shit like that. And also because the Roosters are not the usual quality of the side that they tend to be in the past. So it's not like we're lining up against a particularly damaging version of them. And they could very easily overlook us this week. So there are ingredients there that sort of give me, I'm not going to say hope, but could be used as a solid logical justification for us being competitive. Now, all that to say, there's no logical way you should tip them. Of course not. But I certainly think that the guys named should be able to be convinced that they have a chance. And as long as they can be convinced that they have a chance and have some belief and they get off to a decent start, I mean, if they manage to score the first try, that'll be a that'll be interesting. Like, because I feel like that we haven't scored the first try in a fair while. So I think that'll probably be like a pretty big. That would be a pretty big focus point for me if I was Benji. I'd be like, whatever the fuck you do, please score the first try. Like, do not let them score early because if they do, it'll be ugly.
Yeah, I think you nailed it. And that is what it is. They real like the old habits really creep in if the opposition scores first and suddenly they're chasing the game and they fall back into line. Look, I really hope this forward pack has a B in their bonnet. They got, as I said, they got dominated by a pack of old blokes last week. This week they play a bunch of kids. Show them how to play footy. Show them how it's done. Sorrel, mate, you're playing the side that turfed you after you signed a contract months previously.
Yeah, I mean they very well should, Jared.
Make it happen. In
They
terms of how
can.
we play, Um, I'm hopeful that we see Dewey and Finu move around and interchange being first and second receiver. I think there's points both for and against, but I think Dewey's probably going to have to go into the line at first receiver and try and drag defenders in to give Latu the time and space that he needs. Whereas Adam, he's just not seen as a running threat when he's playing as a pivot. He's just, he meanders a little bit. He's a little bit slow, and from memory against Parramatta, it just didn't work too well. I think that's probably something that needs to happen. But Sania Taruva through the middle, I'm desperate to see him just sort of hang off hips and sort of seek out offloads. Heath Mason, has the ability to sort of break a front rower's ankles. I think Sania can do the same thing, but I think as opposed to pinning it, Sania might actually look up and try and have a crack and sort of score some tries. But we'll see. Look, in terms of where they're going to score points or where the problems are, it's that left edge which we spoke about. Giral can put on a bell ringer like he did to Tom Dvojevic in the first half, which was probably the only highlight. But it's obviously just managing that left side, and obviously with Adam at left side half there. We're just going to have to wait and see. But look, again, I'm not going to issue predictions either because, it might change something. But look, look at the teams on paper, and football games aren't played on paper, especially West Tigers ones. And yes, there is cause for interest. I'll put it that way. I certainly raised my eyebrows when I saw the team list. But again, after what happened last week, it's hard to get up and sort of have any proper optimism.
Yes. I think that tactically, in terms of attack, I probably would. I disagree with you. I think that I would have Adam Dewey on the ball, but I would have him playing a lot more like a traditional 13. And I would probably try to focus on high energy, quick play the balls, running from dummy half, a lot of first receiver carries, back towards the ruck, and then let Latu play off the back of that. So you bring Latu into first receiver only in those situations
Yeah.
because I don't think that Latu is really quite a good game manager quite yet. I don't think, and maybe he never will be, but right now I don't think that he's actually a particularly good game manager. And I think that if you play him at first receiver in a game plan like that, you actually miss out on the opportunities to use his strengths as more of like a traditional six. He reminds me, like right now, he reminds me of what Dylan Brown is a bit like. Dylan Brown likes to sort of stand back and he'll like come into a game at a specific time and either run it or pass it. That's what Latu is. He might be even better than Dylan Brown at both running and passing. So it's going to be up to the forwards, the likes of Taruva, the likes of Adam Dewey, and Hope to actually get momentum through the middle. It is where we could potentially see dividends because, like you said, like the forward pack didn't play super well last week, but we can't exactly expect that they won't respond, because frankly they have been the best part of our team this year, and that is the part of our team that is the least affected by injury right now. So you have to put your faith in them, and you have to put your stock in them to do that. So you build that game plan around that as well. And look, also second phase is going to be critical. I think that the middle guys are going to have a bit of a haul pass to dump the ball out the back there, and that will benefit the way Taruva likes to play fullback too. Like he actually, he's the sort of fullback who tends to get like a very high number of carries. Like when he plays fullback, he gets upwards of 250 meters per game quite regularly, because he's just on the ball constantly looking for, like, getting back through the middle and like finding space through the middle. So him being there, that also suits the way he likes to play. So that's sort of what I would do. And yeah, I whether or not it works, who's to say? But that to me would be the game plan. Let's talk about New South Wales Cup, because something very interesting is happening this weekend in the New South Wales Cup side.
I'm well and truly aware of it. We'll talk about it in a sec, but we may as well just review just quickly. 28-14 to the Magpies, 5 tries scored, but only 2 try scorers. Isaac Tuitupor with a double continues his rich vein of form. And Alex Lobb, the unlikely fullback, which a lot of people laughed at, myself included, him playing fullback. He's proven an able deputy and a guy that can do a job in that position there. He scored a hat-trick. In terms of guys that I want to call out, Joe Lovadua got called in to start at hooker after Tristan Hope was pulled following up his concussion. 30 tackles, none missed. 59 minutes, fair stint in the middle there, especially having to tackle blokes like Lazalu, Delasalle Va'a, and Xavier Va'a. So well done to Joe. But Royce Hunt, it looks as if somebody threw down the gauntlet to him. 8 runs for 85 metres, 11 tackles, none missed, 31 minutes. And he also had a pretty nice try assist where he broke the line and threw a pass for one of Alex Lobb's tries. Look, these guys just seem to have it down pat at the moment. Experience and class in this grade is beginning to help. Obviously, all eyes were on Tallyn May. He was pulled out late with a hamstring issue. Ultimately, it's pleasing to see, although I wish that we did see a little bit more from our youngsters. But again, this side is trending in the right direction, and obviously all eyes on this week for a couple of reasons, which we'll mention in a moment. Did you see much of this game, mate? Okay, all right. Just for the preview, guys, so Brent Naden will start at fullback. Tallyn May has been named once again. I assume he will play after being pulled out. Obviously, if he's been named, it's not that serious. But all eyes will be on jersey 17. He was pulled out of the national championships for the Australian schoolboys. His name is Hiamasi Makasini. We have spoken about him many, many times. He is in jersey 17. He will make his New South Wales Cup debut. I anticipate that Tallyn will get half a game. Hiamasi will get half a game. Both will play left centre. And look, to be honest with you, it's come at a pretty good time against this Canberra side. The Raiders have got a few injuries. They've got a couple of guys playing Origin. This is a really ideal time for us to call some guys up.
Yeah, I think we have to tread carefully with Hiamasi, don't we? When I say we, I mean you and me, because it seems like that every junior that we tout, or every lower grader that we tout, comes into first grade, has a good crack and then pisses off. Well,
don't talk about this Hopewadi that's playing in the 15s of the junior championship.
No.
Do not talk about him at all. But if you want to watch, go and have a look on X or on Instagram. My God. Moving on.
Monson Hopewadi, yeah.
Oh God. Moving on.
Yeah, I mean it's exciting to see. So he's straight into New South Wales Cup as you predicted.
Hiamasi, you're talking about Monson?
Yeah, I'm talking about Hiamasi. I expect it probably to be the most watched game of the week on Bar TV Sports, because plenty of people around the NRL are interested in this young man. and not just the NRL, but the international rugby. So hopefully he does well. I am very impressed with the. It's actually interesting because like you, we've complained in the past about depth, and we've complained in the past that our roster hasn't been strong enough to handle injury crises. But when you look at the New South Wales Cup team this week, it's a strong team. We've had to call up a few players, but it's a very strong team, and it doesn't look all that different than the one that won last week.
I have,
Obviously,
I have
I think
something to say, but just going back to the conversation that we always have, it was 3 20-year-olds in the spine, and the thing is that we just haven't recruited for us to go away from that. Now, Dewey's been named in the halves, and I was one of these people that said, don't disrupt defensive combinations. It's the right call this week. But ideally, we need to go after guys, and we've spoken about it a couple of times. Saliba Havili should be number one on our list if we need a 9/13 that can come off the bench and spell happy. That is important. Tamare Martin is off contract. Bring him home. And a guy like Corey Allen, would do a great job. They strengthen underneath, and that's wonderful. I just worry about the golfing class, from a. And I rate Mapapalangi. I think that he has upside, but as a 5'8", I don't see it. Falls is, a very, very solid dependable cup halfback. I put him in the Brandon Wakeham class. And obviously again, I love Luke Laulii and I very much like Heath Mason. I just think they're a bit young. But anyway, sorry, I went off track there. But that's my sort of thing.
No, that's all good. But it's New South Wales Cup, so like it's for New South Wales Cup. You've got Brent Naden playing fullback, who's a very experienced campaigner. Isaac Tuitupu is a first grader playing on the wing. Solomon Ifatape's played first grade. Taylan May's a stud. Alex Lobb is pretty handy. Like, he's certainly probably above average New South Wales Cup winger. Kurt Falls, as you said, high standard halfback for the grade. Royce Hunt's a seasoned first grader. Kit Lalali'i is a top 30 player. Luke Jack is actually performing really, really well for a guy who's essentially unheralded. Eliel Zackham just got upgraded to Dev. Jackson Rami's been having a banger season and must be sort of starting to knock the door down for first grade. And finally, my boy Bailey Hodges is back in the New South Wales side on the bench there. Ruben Porter played first grade last year, and he's been in decent form. Noah Johansson's called back up. He's been in and around New South Wales Cup all year. And then you got Marcassini. It's a strong 1-17. It is a good 1-17 for New South Wales Cup. It certainly shits on 1-17 from last year from a great height. So
without question, absolutely.
So when you say that we need to recruit from the bottom up, I get that. Like, I guess my observation here is that we actually have a pretty strong bottom. Like, we have a strong fringe, a strong first grade fringe. I think it's pretty fruitful first grade fringe now, and as you see the New South Wales Cup side performing better, it means that when you bring somebody like Marcassini into that side, he's going to be coming into a side that's likely to compete and might even probably win, because the Raiders are 1-4 from their last 5 games and we're in decent touch. So as opposed to in the past, when you bring these young guys into the New South Wales Cup side, you're bringing them into a side that gets thrashed. So that's that the downstream flow and effect of that is good. So you can see the little roots forming of the master plan of Richo, because a lot of it does come down to some of the really snap recruitment decisions that he's made out of the blue, like bringing in a guy like Falls, Mapapalangi, El Zackham, Luke Jack, out of the blue, that have really actually helped contribute to this side actually performing quite well. Taylan May, Isaac Tuitupu, obviously, to name another.
Yeah, definitely, and I'm right there with you. And it speaks to his recruitment, and he said it from the outset that he thinks a good second grade is key for a good first grade. You need blokes knocking down the door, and there are guys that are absolutely knocking down the door, and it's great to see. And long may it continue. We are absolutely going to need it. Flag, they went down to the Chooks 28-22. Couple of our underage boys, Jack Nicholas with a double. Big fan of Jack. Again, probably shouldn't wrap too many Pathways players because we often just release them for nothing in return. But big gangly winger. Reminds me a little bit of Corey Oates. I think he can goal kick too, young Jack, but he had some time in the centres on the weekend and played really, really well. Jared Haywood continued his great form in the grade, and Logan Deninja is really beginning to hit his strides. He scored a great little try on minute 43, thanks to some incredible brilliance by one Faletino Tavana, who we cannot speak highly enough. Look, this Chook side, I'm about to find out where they are playing. They are coming. They're around the same place as us. We've won 6, drawn 2, lost 8. They've won 7, drawn none, lost 9. There's some good players in and amongst that side. Safadi, Lachlan Dooner's a good player. Reece Foley, Atula Seve, Jackson Allen, Ethan Roberts. You know, they've got some good players in and amongst those guys. This was just obviously a closely fought match. Chook's got the chocolates at the end of the day, and our boys will roll on and play the second place Raiders this week.
Yeah, and it's probably worth mentioning that the Raiders in the flag are very strong, but in New South Wales Cup, the Raiders are actually not in great form. So I would say we'll be going into the weekend's fixtures as favourites in New South Wales Cup, but not in flag. Interesting name at number 1 for the Raiders this week, Matua Brown. I had no idea that they signed him. Matua Brown.
He's been there a little while.
Yeah, Matua Brown's from Far North Queensland. He was the Queensland schoolboys fullback the year that Lachlan Galvin and Luke Lolley played schoolboys. He's a very good player. A bit like I guess like in the mould of like a sort of like a bit of a hammer, but not quite as fast. Similar kind of fullback, plays that way. It'd be a good test.
That's a good
test for the It's a good test for the flag side. Look, I think that they're good enough to win. I'm interested I'm interested in the fact that they didn't actually progress any of the flag players to second grade with this injury crisis. They've kept the flag team intact. They could have very easily used this injury crisis as a justification for bringing back Fletty or, promoting, especially Jared Haywood. They promoted Bailey Hodges to deputy hooker on the bench in New South Wales Cup instead of Jared Haywood. I find that really interesting. And it makes me think that maybe the club's quite intentional about what they're doing with their flag side right now. Maybe they've got designs on the flag side actually like staying pretty much intact for the rest of the season. And maybe having a run at it because it is a strong side. I know they went down last week. That happens. But, over the last 8 weeks, I would say that they've been probably, one of the 4 or 5 better sides in the flag comp. And I think that if they can continue to kind of stick to it and improve as the season goes on, which both the New South Wales Cup side and the flag side are doing, that our first grade are not doing, they do seem to be improving every week. I could certainly see them rounding into form and actually being competitive. I wouldn't put it past them to, as long as they win, say 60% of their remaining games, finish inside the top 5 in the flag, they got a chance. I honestly think that they have a chance to compete.
Well, there's a very, very key, crucial in back this week in Max Lyles. He's just a steady hand, ball playing, great footy IQ, excellent kicking game, knows how to shut out a match. That'll help them to no end. But I agree with you. Delaney and Matale are really laying the platform early. Jesley Adagaga is doing pretty good there at 13. Leonard Plati and Shaquille DeVita are doing great things off the bench. Those guys lay the platform. Haywood, manages to control through the middle third. And, you've got 2 absolute skyscrapers for this grade with Broadalow and Sakuru, in the back row. So, yeah, and then, guys like Tavana, Max Dautua and Deninja, in your back line. So, yeah, it's a well-balanced...
And Felity.
Yeah, Josh Felletti too. They are improving week to week. Hopefully it continues.
Well, I think that it's rare for the Tigers over the past few seasons to have consistency week to week in who they're selecting in this team. In the past, the flag side's just been up and down and in and out, and it's probably because they haven't, let's be honest, they probably just haven't given a crap about the results. It's just been glorified trading runs, the way that they've treated the flag side in the past. But it seems more intentional. They've got the same players playing the same positions week in, week out. They've got Tavana, they've got Deninja now. They've got this solid halves combination that's emerging there with Matai and Lyles. They've got Hayward, who's played multiple games in a row. The pack has been pretty much the same names now for about a month straight. Same names coming off the bench too. Plati, Tavita, Lanyon, who are forming a really good bench rotation of forwards. Godinay's been in and out of the side, but he's obviously a very talented player. And you can tell that they're strong because they got the likes of Mitch Tatua, who is now on the extended bench, and Byron Lau-Pepper, who's played pretty good games in this flag side this season too. So strong side. Excited to watch them perform. I think that they they got a lot of potential, and I like that. I like that they have avoided the trap of the
dying mid-season.
And more so the picking them and moving them around and never sticking with the same team. Like off a loss in the past, I would have expected them to be like, yeah, Laters and bringing in a new dude. But no, they're like sticking solid. And I think that's going to pay dividends because I think most other flag sides are less consistent. So it is a pretty good point of difference and sort of way to compete in this grade is with a consistent team. So yeah, good luck to them. I genuinely, considering how many of these guys are young for the grade, I think that it's a real good crop. I think that it's the fact that they're actually like performing really well in 21s when most of them are SG ball age. It's very promising signs for them. And it'll be easy for like fans of the club who are used to seeing the young guys push all the way through really rapidly to look at this and be like, they must not be that good. They're playing flag because people are so used to the flag side being like basically where everybody goes for their careers to die. Yeah. Like nobody goes through the flag side and makes much of themselves, right? But the difference now is that the New South Wales Cup side's performing well with open age players. So there's less room for them to actually move through. These are actually good young players playing flag. And in reality, some of these guys are probably going to make first grade at the age of 22 because of that barrier that's there now. And that's a good thing. That's a sign of a healthy club. Like, they're not just going to get shunted like through super fast. Obviously, you still see the likes of Marcassini, who just has so much talent that they just want to push him through faster. But for the majority of these guys, it's normal to see them not become proper first graders till 20, 21, 22. And most of these dudes aren't 20, much less 21. So it's not a slight against them. So be mindful of that, fans, that just because Tino Tavana's playing flag and just because, the likes of Jared Hayward's still playing flag doesn't mean that they're not going to be superstar first graders, because they very well still could be.
With you there, my friend. No real Q&A to speak of today. I just want to roll back to the initial question of which West Tigers player would have the worst breath and why. Cheese Supreme 1717 says 12 because of eating kebabs with extra garlic sauce, whereas Blaine says Jack Bird looks like he's partial to a dart. Now, I don't disagree on both of them, but I've got to be honest, boys, I was really hoping for something a little bit more.
That was shit. Shit answers.
I was hoping for something salacious. Straight away, Uppy Coruscant, flat out, would not brush his teeth. What would emanate from his throat would smell like a mix of rotten eggs and horse shit.
No, you reckon?
Yeah, I really do. And
who do you reckon would have nice breath?
Jereen.
Yeah, he would. I reckon Alex Seaforth would have good breath.
Yeah, okay. So who do you think would have terrible breath?
Sunia Taruva.
Why?
Because he's childish. I bet he doesn't even make his bed.
I feel like we're really picking on the Coruscant family here.
Yeah, but I don't necessarily agree with your take on Appy. Appy's a guy who cares about his image. I reckon he would have okay breath. I think Jerome would have good breath. Jerome probably has like designer toothpaste, eh?
Yeah, his would smell fresh.
Cleaners are in the office. It was time for me to go. Who else is there? I reckon Alex Twal would have pretty gross breath. Yeah.
I reckon he'd be fine.
Actually, no, he's like really disciplined, eh?
He's a bit funky before a meal. I feel like he's a baking soda toothpaste type. No fruit.
Yeah. But he probably brushes after every meal too, because his mum trained him well. You know, that's the thing. Like you got to look at the precocious ones that like succeeded because of their raw talent and not because of their hard work and discipline. They'll be the ones that are like, you know, not got the dental hygiene down, the no floss gang. So you know, there's just not that many of them at our club. But most of the guys at our club are like getting about everything out of their talent, really. So I think, and you like at the finers, the fact that all the finers have made first grade speaks volumes to how good of parents they must have, right? So I'm sure Mama Finer's got those boys on some good dental hygiene plan.
Yes, system focus, those boys, for sure.
I bet you they lined up one after the other, and like she had to watch like 60 seconds per
Oh,
gum.
definitely had the music toothbrushes. Remember those?
Yeah, no, they definitely. So I think that maybe that's why there wasn't too many people in the comments, because they were just doing a mental checklist through all the boys. It's like, no, these guys are just all good breath guys.
Yeah, I'm hearing that.
Dewey. There you go. That's my final answer. Dewey's breath sucks.
All right, done.
Yeah,
Right,
gross breath.
cleaners are in your office. My missus is probably sick of me being in this room. Good luck to everybody who's going to watch the game on the weekend. Make sure you get a Bar TV sports subscription. The kid in the 17 jersey is legit. We'll see you next week.